Industries that are hot, sectors set to outperform the market. That's what's here in Zacks Industry Rank Analysis. Charles Rotblatt, that man about the markets for Zacks.com, puts this report all together for us each week. And once again, he's brought his radar screen up from his office to talk about this week's focus, which is the airline industry, right?
It is the airline industry.
And what you're telling us is that profit forecasts for the airlines are taking off, despite all the other problems that they have.
It is, and there's a lot of problems. And one thing I do want to say to investors is I'm always wary about talking up the airlines because there are fundamental problems. We still have too much capacity, even though airlines have cut back on the number of flights available. Too many airlines, too much price competition. Margins still stink. So if you're a long-term investor, this is not a sector you really want to look into. But if you're an aggressive trader, I think you do need to take a look at this group and realize that the market can get any traction on a rebound. And this is one group that could actually do pretty well.
Okay.
What we're seeing right now with fourth quarter forecasts is we're seeing them revised upwards, and we're also seeing 2009 forecasts being revised upward. The big thing is really fuel costs. As everybody knows, fuel prices have dropped a lot over the past several months.
Right.
This has helped airlines quite a bit simply because fuel costs account for such a large cost of their expense. So any decline is going to help them. And we're seeing that in third quarter earnings, which have largely come in ahead of expectations. We're seeing fourth quarter estimates being revised upwards, and we're seeing forecasts for 2009 being revised upwards. Now, as I say this, I do want to point out Southwest Airlines, because Southwest Airlines, throughout the whole oil bubble, had been the most aggressive as far as hedging against fuel cost. And when they reported their earnings, when you look at the reported number, it actually is net of a large write-down against their hedges. Hedge against higher fuel costs come down, you lose money on those hedges. So there is a little bit of a downside. But overall, when we look at the industry, the fall in costs is a big positive over the short term for these companies.
You kind of answer my next question in your text piece, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway because the average person listening or watching would say, well, if the industry is having the problems that you say it's having, and they are laying off, we've seen layoffs in the airline group this year, how can they be making more money? How can they be forecasting more money? But you put your finger on it. Fee income.
Yeah, they do. And that's one thing when we talk about it, it's really relative to past expectations. It's not that these companies' operating margins are really improving. In fact, when you looked at operating margins for the third quarter, mixed at best. Actually, some companies saw a decline in operating margins. They probably will improve a little bit in the fourth quarter. But when you look at what the airlines are doing, they're charging more for anything. You want a blanket, you got to pay. You want food, you got to pay. You want to take that second bag, you got to pay.
Right.
And so as a result, they're having fewer flights. The flights themselves are being more crowded, and it costs less to fly a plane. So all that helps. One thing I did find interesting is when you look at load factor, which is really a mathematical equation about how full the plane is, those are kind of varied across airlines. And now what I'm not sure about is how much those second baggage fees actually factored into it, because it's really a matter of weight on the plane versus weight of how much weight the plane can actually carry. So you can get butts and seats, but those people are carrying less stuff on the plane with them. You might actually see a decrease in load factor. You also might see less cargo being shipped just because of the lower economy. But overall, when we look at profits relative to expectations, the outlook is brightening.
But you mentioned weight. And at one point, I don't know if it was this year or last, out on the street was the word that airlines might even begin to charge passengers who were overweight for the excess weight that they were responsible for bringing on the aircraft. They haven't done that yet. But
they haven't done that.
That must be the next place they look.
There was scuttlebutt about it, and I think it never really was confirmed that one airline said they did it. Most likely, probably an executive, some out there, floated it out anonymously, trying to see what would the reaction be if we did this. And I think, the reaction across the public was, are you kidding me? And I think it probably, with the fall, with the fall in the oil prices, I think it kind of went away. I can't imagine a single woman, whether she's a size 2, size 12, or size 22, that'd be willing to get on a scale in an airport.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to get on a scale in the airport either, and I've lost weight, and I still wouldn't want to do it.
Right. What about holiday travel now? We are, just weeks away from the holiday travel season. Are you expecting an increase in holiday travel, decrease, or just a flat line?
I really haven't seen any numbers on it, which is kind of surprising. I think because there's been so much focus on the economy, and certainly, with the day-to-day events going on with the banks, I haven't seen anything about it. My guess, though, is that we will see a decline in holiday travel. We've seen declines before when we look at past holidays. People are driving more. They're taking more vacations closer to home. This said, if you're going to fly out on Thanksgiving, particularly the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the airports are still going to be massively crowded, all the usual problems. But I do think overall we'll see a decrease in holiday travel. When we look at consumer confidence that came out yesterday, Tuesday, October 28th, we saw consumer confidence at close to a record low, had dropped considerably. And I think people are worried. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their paychecks going further. And even though gas prices have dropped, they're still relatively high. Mm-hmm. And so I do think you'll look at more people wanting to stay at home, maybe visit relatives close in, or just happen to drive versus flying. Because for a family of four, if you're buying 4 seats, you could be easily looking at $800-900 for the flight, at least, plus parking, plus food and everything else associated with travel. It's not cheap.
Do you or does anyone in your house own any of the stocks you might have mentioned here today?
No, I do not.
All right. Now, you are going to want to take a look at this text piece. I can't believe any reason why you wouldn't. You're going to want to just go to Zacks.com, click on the headline, and go right to this text piece because Charles outlines some third quarter profit highlights as far as company names are concerned that you're going to want to take a look at. Again, to do that, go to Zacks.com, click on the headline that says Industry Rank Analysis. It'll take you right to it. With Charles Rotblatt and the Industry Rank Analysis, I'm Terry Ruffalo.